Yeah. Well, Sam was a little different in that he had a very typical infancy. And when he was about two and a half, everything stopped.
Wow.
All the, you know, his, his alphabet, his blocks, his, you know, all kinds of things, building things, it all stopped. And it was, well, Sam is 33. So back then, there was not a lot of real clear information.
Uh-huh.
And it took a while before he got a real solid diagnosis. And the, one of the main things that really helped is we started ABA therapy
Yeah, we did that.
early,
Yeah.
and that was really a life changer. And then the music, the music was just unbelievable. He started off when he was young, maybe 10-ish, in the Suzuki piano program, and nothing at all was happening. He didn't particularly like it. He didn't show any particular, skill with it. But when I introduced jazz and improvisation and blues, it was like a literal explosion.
Wow.
And so this was when he was about 13.
Wow.
And he just ate up that vocabulary. There was something about the rhythmic aspect of the language and the harmonic language just spoke to him, and he ate it up, you know. And he started taking lessons with a jazz musician, Trudy Silver, in New York. And it just made remarkable progress, learning that language. There's Bobby.
Hey, Bobby. I think we can keep this in. Jeff, we really hit the ground running. You really gave me a good expose.
Sure.
So we can kind of go. Good morning, Bobby.
How's you going to do,
How
John?
you doing? We were just really getting into Sam and his world. Let's just kind of by way of introduction, officially, let's just do an introduction for each of you.
Sure. So I'm Jeff Nussbaum. I am the father of Sam Baum and the director of Special Audiences and Musicians, which is a small nonprofit organization that supports jazz musicians with disabilities, primarily autism, but quite a wide range of disabilities also: blindness, arthrogryposis, polio, Crohn's disease have been others that musicians in the band have had. And I got to know Bobby Sanabria, the great drummer and percussionist. I mean, at first, of course, you knew of him, and then I was involved in the Historic Brass Society's conference on James Reese Europe, where Bobby participated in a period instrument performance of the music of James Reese Europe. So that's how I came to know Bobby, and he's been a really invaluable guest artist in in the group and in the recording. Um, so we not only support uh, musicians with disabilities, but we incorporate people outside of the spectrum, such as Bobby, uh, for a twofold effort. One, to serve as a mentor to people in the group, but also to educate others, who are not on the spectrum. And it's a mutual learning experience, I think.
And Bobby, we interviewed in 2023, so we got a really good portal into your world. So this is just going to add to the flavors of what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, as Jeff said, we met through the Historical Brass Society concert uh, in honor of James Reese Europe, who, for those of you viewing this and or listening, is the first person as a band leader to expose was the first person to expose European audiences to not jazz per se, but to ragtime, which is like could be considered proto jazz during World War One. He was the band director of the 369th Harlem Regiment's band, and that regiment became known as the Harlem Hellfighters, named by the Germans for their fierce fighting skills. They were the most decorated unit in World War Two. I mean, sorry, World War One. But that band was very key in getting not only African Americans recognition nationwide for their glorious service because they were the most decorated unit, but also that band became the root of what later became the Harlem Renaissance and then the whole explosion of big bands later on. It was a concert band, but that gave rise to large ensemble jazz. So I was, it was for me, it was fantastic meeting Jeff and all the musicians that played on period instruments, including myself. So it was very hip. And we've been friends ever since. And when Jeff asked me to do this, I said, "Yeah, of course, I'd love to do it." And it's been fun. It's been a learning experience, and it's been most of all very gratifying.
That's wonderful. And my thought before we kind of dig into the particulars of the recording and how we got here is how many, I mean, how much of what you're doing right now is going to become more commonplace? Because the numbers for the kids and adults that are on the spectrum on the planet continue to rise. And I would imagine there's a lot of people out there that have very heightened musical sensibilities that can be lent along by veteran esteemed masters like you to help them get that music out in a group format.
Well, I have some experience actually with uh, highly motivated and highly skilled musicians that I hate to use that word autistic because it makes them sound like there's something that is weird to the general public or negative. I had a student at the Manhattan School of Music who was actually a very good professional musician, uh, Elijah Schiffer. And I don't mind saying his name because he's very talented. He should get all the recognition he deserves, not for being autistic, but for being such a fabulous alto saxophone player. And he's a fantastic arranger. So I had some experience dealing with a musician that had this condition, and I just treated him just like everybody else. Actually, then it was fun having him in the orchestra that I taught at the Manhattan School of Music because he would blurt out things occasionally that were so on point, poignant, and funny at the same time that somebody normally would not say because they say, "Oh, let me not say that because I'm being rude or whatever, or I'll make somebody feel bad." But it was. I remember the first time it happened. Uh, I just I I just sat down and he went on a slight rant about the trumpet section. And I just looked at my watch and I let him go for he went for like about a minute. And I had no idea he was autistic because nobody had forewarned me. But I just sat there next to the piano player, looked at my watch, and after everything, after he said what he said, I just said, Elijah, I agree with you totally. The whole orchestra erupted in laughter. Then finally, I get a phone call from the head of the school, the jazz department at the time, the great Justin DeChocho, and told me, yeah, I forgot to let you know you have a kid in there who's autistic, but he's highly functional. Obviously, he wouldn't be at the school if he didn't meet the parameters of the skill set that you have to be at the school. So I just let And I also remember that incident, that first incident, because one of the students, after it happened, came up to me and said, "Hey, Mr. Sanabria, man, you know that kid, something's wrong with him. You know this, that. Something's weird about him." Like, and I told him, "No, there's nothing weird about him, man.
Yeah,
Everything he said was true. You know, you
yeah,
guys in the trumpet section were effing up and doing this, that, and the other. It's just that the way he said it, you didn't, but yeah, but I go, no, he's not weird, man. In fact, you got to have guys like that in every band to make the band have some personality or whatever. So just don't worry about it, and get it together because everything he said about you guys was true. I just threw it back in his face, but I understand the 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 isolation that many of these highly talented people that just happen to be autistic may have because this gentleman that I just mentioned, despite the fact that he was so talented, a lot of his fellow students did not want to interact with him, and I had to tell them uh, in non-conditional terms that they had to interact with him and that he was in fact in many ways more normal than them, you know.
yeah.
So Jeff can speak more about this than I can, but I, I assume, and I'm just assuming, that people with this condition uh, have a stigma attached to them.
Oh
In,
yeah,
in,
absolutely. I mean, uh, particularly when Sam was younger, and people on the autistic spectrum sometimes have physical mannerisms, jumping up and down or flapping their hands. And there really wasn't a day that we would take a walk on the streets in New York and someone wouldn't make fun of him, laugh at him, which is why I feel so strongly about the approach of incorporating these mentors in the organization to slowly try to change that attitude. And I think all change, is difficult, but I think what we've done, one shows that the high level of the music, particularly on this album, which was greatly enhanced by the guest artists, Bobby and Dan Block, and particularly 95-year-old musical master David Amram. Having the combination is really a special thing. But the isolation and the prejudice is real.
David Amram is probably one of the best human beings I've ever spoken to. Ever.
Absolutely.
Just, I mean, the when you said his name and I knew he was on here, it just spread my heart with warmth. For him to be a part of this project is stellar. The other part of this too is that it's the release days today. Sam has to be ecstatic about it, huh? I mean, yesterday was World Autism Day. It's Autism
Yeah.
Awareness Month. This has to be a really special time.
Well, it's certainly a special time for me. How Sam internalizes it is anyone's guess. I mean, I think on some level he's happy about it all, and he certainly looked forward to the release of and doing the album, and he's now hawking me about the next one, because he's written so many tunes. We can have like 5 or 6 albums coming up, but it's in a way it's a really beautiful thing because Sam and I think many other people on the autistic spectrum are basically prejudice free and they don't suffer from a lot of the pretense that so-called typical people have. I mean, I remember one time Um, and I should also say that people in the jazz community, by and large, have been extremely supportive. People like David Amram and Bobby and Dan Block and Fred Hirsch and George Coleman. Um, but the great Billy Taylor invited us to come to his house and have Sam play. And we went, and it was great. You know, Sam played, and he even did a little joke with Bobby, with Billy Taylor, saying, "Hey, Billy, I bet you don't know this one." And he started playing "I Wish I Knew." And so, anyway, the next day when Sam was at his music lesson, I said, "Sam, tell Dan what you did yesterday." And he said, "Oh, I had dinner with my friend Henry." Now he has dinner with his friend Henry all the time. But you know, the fact that he played for the great Billy Taylor
Yeah,
had no sense of pretense about that.
of
Most
course.
people would be bragging, you know. So that says a lot about the mindset, which is in a way very beautiful.
You know, as I mentioned before, being in the special needs world for 2 decades plus, I've always heard how it's going to get better in the future. More awareness, like this month that we're in right now and in general. But I think these are the moments that are going to make us embrace the humanity of all of us in a very specific way, to harness the skills and the beauty of that mindset that Sam has, and to intermesh that into this world that I consider jazz people to be some of the finest people in the world. This to me seems like a real kismet situation to really celebrate the humanness of us, irregardless of the label that society wants to put on us.
Right. Well, I certainly hope so, and I do think that things um, will progress. Perhaps two steps forward, one step back, you know, slowly. But I do have faith that things, particularly with more enlightening and educational activities, such as what we're trying to do, um, become more public and people are more aware of it.
So I kind of want to get a little bit of a snapshot of when you realized that you wanted to, or when Sam realized he really wanted to put these recordings out and into a level of permanence into the world. How did that happen?
Um, Well, it's interesting. As I said before, he was really making tremendous progress absorbing the jazz language and playing and improvising on the piano and learning dozens and dozens of tunes. But we only dipped our toe into composition, just, you know, a little bit. Um, and at one point, I just tried to guide Sam. So this would have been about 5 years ago into starting writing tunes. And we did contrafacts first because he knew, you know, rhythm changes and he knew the blues and he knew the changes to Satin Doll and a lot of standards. And that just again took off. I mean, he was very creative in writing these contrafacts. And I realized, well, you know, he's got about 20 tunes. So let's do a recording. And he made his first recording, as I said, about 5 years ago, and then kept writing. And I wanted to document this. And then did the second album where I invited Dan Block to be a guest artist, and he had been playing with the group, and it was very supportive, you know, all along. And then this third one, the current one that's being released today, it, um, it was phenomenal to me. First of all, I mean, David Amram was kind of a mentor to me when I was a kid, and Sam knew him over the years, and mostly from Rafi's peanut butter and sandwich tune, Um, and Bobby and David, I know, have a very strong relationship, and it was just a really beautiful experience. And the way we work, and Sam ultimately progressed compositionally and studies with Javier Arau, uh, composition teacher. Um, he stopped doing the contrafacts and is creating his own harmonic progressions as well as the melodies. But I would start him off. Um, I would first of all say, "You ready to write a new tune?" And he'll say, "Yeah." And I'll do something very basic to get him going. It may be, I'll say, suggest, you want to do something in 3/4. You want to do something in A major. Start in A major. Okay, we're going to start in A major. All right. And I have him play A major scale so he gets a tonality in his head. And I said, okay, give me an idea. Play an idea. And he'll play different things. And he'll come up with something that he likes. And at that point, it may be a two measure phrase. And I'll say, okay, play it 5 times. Because if he doesn't play it 5 times, he'll play something different each time. He'll just keep improvising. And then he gets that phrase in his head. And I say, okay, extend it, answer it however you want. You want to go up. And slowly he'll create a composition. And he works mainly in standard, you know, American songbook form, AABA or the blues, but some kind of standard parameter. And it's been incredible. And then after he writes the tune, I said, okay, what do you want to call it? And if you see some of the titles on the latest album, I mean, they're just quite something. I think he has the best titles since Charles Mingus.
Actually, what Jeff just talked about is a neat little compositional exercise that you could do with any musician of any, even somebody who's we would call a folk musician that doesn't read music or but plays some guitar or a little bit of piano.
Yeah.
Write it, come up with a 2 bar phrase. Okay, answer that with that, and you all of a sudden, like Jeff says, you have a tune. But like as Jeff said, some of the titles Sam comes up with rival, that rival Mingus or Frank Zappa. Yeah.
Both of you are coming from very different perspectives um, on this album and this project. But when you embark on something like this, you undoubtedly have revelations. You learn something along the way. What have each of you learned that you didn't realize before you came into this process that's been memorable, revelatory about not only the creating music, but just being a human on this planet?
Well, from my perspective, I mean, I consider myself a pretty open-minded person and sensitive, etc. So, uh, and I had, as I said before, some experience with someone on the autistic spectrum before, so it wasn't a new thing dealing with Sam. But what I did learn about Sam was that he has this unique ability to write things that harken back to the past, which I've told Jeff this several times. Uh, Sam, if he was living back in the 1930s, he'd be considered a great composer of uh, the then popular jazz of the time, which was dance music. He writes very catchy melodies that are very attractive, and that's why one of the great reasons I enjoy playing with Sam and the rest of the musicians. I don't really look at Sam as autistic or anything like that, or any such thing related to that word. I just look at Sam as just a talented musician. That's a,
Yeah. Yeah.
which hopefully anybody else that meets him would look at him as. Of course, Sam has some quirky things, but we all have quirky things.
Hmm.
You know, I remember that conversation that I had, like that I relate to you with that one young musician that came up to me after the incident I mentioned, and I kept harping on him. There's nothing wrong with the guy, you know. What's and then I threw it back at him. Maybe it's you that something's wrong with you, that you don't can't accept the way he is, and it harkens back to uh, the problems that we have sometimes in past society and in current day society with prejudice.
Yeah.
And hopefully, this recording and also through the live performances that Sam does, he inches a little bit more cutting away at that block of insensitivity and insecurity that people have and fear and which is the other root causes of prejudice to begin with. So and we have Sam has a big performance coming up in June at the Bronx Music Hall, where I'm the co-artistic director uh, with my wife Elena Martinez, the great folklorist. So Jeff could talk about that more in a little while. But when that concert comes along, we will encourage everyone to come along. It's on June 18th.
And I do want to touch on that. I want to touch as this time starts slipping away. We're getting closer to the end of this Zoom session. I want to make sure that we do get the best place for people, aside from streaming, to pick up a copy of this album, catch this show and any other shows that are going to happen.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, I certainly echo Bobby's sentiment. And the album, is available on Bandcamp as
Okay.
well as all the other, major streaming platforms. Um, and if people are encouraged to support the work that we do with special audiences and musicians, they're most welcome to make a tax-deductible contribution, which they can do from the website, which is the name of the organization, Special Audiences and Musicians.org, O-R-G. Um, and the concert at the Bronx Music House on June 18th is going to involve David Amram and Dan Block and Bobby, of course, and the rest of the ensemble. Um, there's going to be sort of an official release event concert at the Vision Center at 135 West 23rd Street on Monday, April 27th at 1 p.m. And we have an ongoing relationship with the Vision Center, which is a residence for blind people, which is also part of the mission of the organization to um, present concerts at venues where people have a limited ability to hear live music, people with disabilities, senior people. So we have a series at the Vision Center once a month or every 2 months where we come into them and present live jazz concerts. And on this coming Monday, I think it's the 6th, we'll be playing at the Shrine Jazz Club in Manhattan at 7 p.m. So there are a few things. And also, I've tried to tie into the disabilities community, for want of a better term, and forge relationships with them, and we're going to be performing for two private gala events for Landmark College at City Winery and the Cook School at the Lighthouse in Chelsea Piers in New York. And those are both institutions that have a connection with students who have disabilities.
Wonderful. I will get all of these links in the show notes. Gentlemen, thank you for taking a minute out. This is such a wonderful project. I can't wait to illuminate it and shout it from the mountaintops on Neon Chess. So thank you
That'll
so
be
much.
great. And thanks, Bobby. Good
Yeah.
chat.
And the great thing is, besides being Autistic Awareness Month, it's Jazz Appreciation Month.
Yes, it is.
So
Absolutely.
celebrate jazz by getting this new album.
Everything coming together. Yes, yes, sir.
Neon Jazz.